You're watching Investors Guide on ET Now. Thanks for staying with us. Virendra is with us as well as we continue to discuss the top recommended mutual funds of the year. Now, for those of you who just tuned in, we've broken up mutual funds by category and we're listing out 3 from each category as the top recommended funds for you to invest in the new year. We've talked about large cap, large and mid and multi-cap. Now it's time for us to talk about mid and small cap equity funds that you should be investing in the new year. Now, topping our list is IDFC Premier Equity, Magnum Emerging Business and Sundaram Select Mid Cap. Now, IDFC Premier Equity, this fund is managed to fall less than even the Sensex, which is impressive for a mid and small cap fund. Tell us why it's made the top of the list.
Yeah, this fund actually held ground much better till about a month back, and now it is falling much more sharply. And this is a fund which has been a very odd fund by its portfolio. It has chosen offbeat stocks, and it has been right with those. It has a set of stocks which many other funds don't have, and it has been ahead of others as well on some occasion. And it is primarily trying to emphasize some theme in its portfolio at different times, which can change with times. And and it is heavily dependent on the fund manager. So I would say that this fund is very impressive relative to all other funds in its category. This fund is extremely vulnerable because it's dependent on the brilliance and or the sustained brilliance of an individual.
I also want to ask you about the Sundaram Select Mid Cap Fund. Now, I know that this was among your top list last year, but it seems to have fallen a little bit in your eyes. Could you tell us why it's lost its #1 position?
Primarily because, it is proving to be an average fund more often. Particularly mid-cap fund, the fund manager has, great scope to add value by his preferences, what to have and what to avoid, and the range is wide. And I think, on that front, that fund is has well on it, primarily stock selection, which has been on its way to mediocrity.
Now, for viewers who are watching and who have invested in Sundaram Select Mid Cap, would you recommend that they move their money into IDFC Premier Equity, or do you say there isn't too much of a difference between the two?
I would not say that Sundaram Select Mid Cap is a bad fund or extremely disappointing fund. It is not necessarily the best fund to have today. There are superior alternatives, the 3 which we have listed just now.
All right, so this is our recap of the mid and small cap funds that we just talked about. Topping our list is IDFC Premier Equity, then of course Magnum Emerging Business and Sundaram Select Mid Cap Regular, that comes in at number 3rd. Moving on now to our tax planning funds, and this is so important because we have 1 year of equity linked savings schemes remaining that we can invest in. Well, topping our list there is the Canara Robeco Equity Tax Saver, Fidelity Tax Advantage and HDFC Tax Saver. The Canara Robeco Tax Saver has come up in the last 1 year or so when it has outdone the rest of its peers. Tell us, when you were looking at it, why did it make the list?
Superior stock selection, nothing else. And 1 year performance of a tax saving fund is not a good yardstick, because investors buy these funds and they have to hold it for 3 years. So, over a full market cycle, a fund which, if not a full market cycle, at least you have to look at a 3-year holding period return. But that apart, this fund is looking very impressive for its superior stock selection, which has translated into meaningful outperformance. And the problem of this fund is that the absence of a template. This fund has done very well so far. It's dependent on the fund manager. Hope it continues to do well. And at this stage, I feel that tax planning fund, going by the state of the equity market and a 3-year time frame and all the time period when the market in a phase like this, 3-year return has been phenomenal. So I would urge investors that whether this fund or other fund, if you have to save for tax saving, you should seriously consider investing in an equity fund.
Right, and talking about ELSS, I have to ask you about the DTC. Now, we know that it didn't come through in the winter session of Parliament. Do you think there is still a chance that we might see it be active on the 1st of April 2012?
I'm not very hopeful of direct tax code coming our way. I think it's low on the priority. And I think it could be low on priority also, in a deliberate way, because direct tax code is going to be a tax negative proposal from the government at a point like this, where everything every other means of revenue for the government seems to be unfavorable.
Moving on, we're talking about equity-oriented hybrid or balanced funds. Topping our list is the Birla Sun Life 95, HDFC Prudence and Tata Balanced. Now, Birla Sun Life 95, Vinod Jain, has been a strong performer for several years, but we also know that HDFC Prudence has been your top pick among balanced funds for the last couple of years. Tell us, how did the Birla Sun Life 95 fund score over HDFC Prudence this year?
No, I don't think the difference is very significant. All the three looks alike, and even the strategy seems to be similar. What I find is the consistency of performance from Birla Sun Life 95 looking to be little more consistent. And what we HDFC Prudence has created a lot of pain for investors who thought that it's a balanced fund. But purely going by the equity orientation of that portfolio, which has been extremely rewarding. Many a times, this fund delivers more than an equity fund as well, particularly in lean times. But that apart, the kind of steep decline it faces, compared to that, I find consistency in Birla Sun Life 95 a little more impressive.
We know that Birla Sun Life 95 scores over most other funds in its category because of its long track record. But for someone who's just starting off and maybe investing in equity for the first time in tough times like this, is this the fund that they should go with, or do you still recommend HDFC Prudence?
As I said earlier, that all these balanced funds are a reasonable choice, and somebody investing for the first time, balanced fund as a category is something to get to start with. If I have to really, if I'm visualizing a more conservative investor, I would say none, but neither of these two. I would go for a UTI balanced fund where the equity allocation is entirely large cap, or something like DSP BlackRock Balanced. They could be superior choice for a conservative balanced fund investor.
Recap on the equity-oriented balanced funds that we're talking about. Topping our list is Birla Sun Life 95, coming in second, HDFC Prudence, and of course third is Tata Balanced. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about international funds, and we'll also pick the best debt fund for you to invest in, so don't go anywhere.